Welcome. It's another episode of not the Community Broadband Bits podcast, but Connect This. So we're gonna have a really fun show, and it's a little bit unstructured because we have no Rye today. Usually behind the scenes, Rye is taking care of everything, and right now it would not surprise me if there's only 3 people in the whole universe that can hear me because I screwed up the broadcast. we're gonna move ahead, and I'm gonna ignore my texts. We've been gone for almost a month, so I'm very excited to bring back our regular crew. And we've got Mr. Doug Dawson back with CCG. Welcome.
And I am glad I'm one of the 3 who can hear you. This is great. So.
Excellent. We've got Travis Carter from US Internet in Minneapolis. Welcome back to the show that you co-host.
Huh? Can't hear you.
Hi, Kim McKinley is in Montana. Usually in Utah with Utah. Well, usually always working for UTOPIA Fiber. Sometimes at her home in Utah, but currently on the road, which is more common, I think.
Yeah, it is. I'm here in Bozeman, Montana. It is 94 degrees here in Montana. So how hot is it in the rest of the country?
I think it's Bose person at this point. We have we'll jump right into I'm going to share my screen here if I can figure this out and jump right into the peekaboo. This is an exciting one, and it comes from friend of the show, Mr. Bob Knight. Kim brought the hat, but I want to know where the leather is.
It's pleather. We are not a true Montanan, but thank you, Mr. Bob Knight, for that lovely picture that he sent of me today. But yes, we were up in Gallatin County talking about broadband in rural areas this morning.
It's 95 degrees and you're wearing a coat, huh? Okay.
It was okay. So to be fair, it's like 44 when you wake up, and I was really cold. And then at that point, I was dying to get that jacket off when I was talking. I was like,
I do feel like we should take a minute to give you a chance to actually say what you were doing up there.
No, so I think it's a really exciting time. We were just talking about that, that they have applied for ARPA money up here. We should find out in the next few weeks. And they're applying for BEAD money for these county rural locations. But what some other exciting news is that we're accepting pre-sales in our first area in Bozeman on Monday. So we should have our first installs happening in September.
Wow.
And that's within 10 months of us even closing the financing. So huge deal that we're that fast of getting this done. So huge news up here in Montana, but I think I would like it better up here since it's not over 100. So I'm good to be up in Montana rather than Utah right now.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
We do have a question from the audience.
Yep. Okay, where is your fabulous hat? Yes, I do need a hat, but it's Kim's turn to wear the cool hat today. And by the way, I think that's Reed. He owes me a call back. So, I tried to call him and it just rolled to voicemail. So call me back.
My question is, how do you get that hat home? That's way too big for the overhead.
Okay, first of all, it's an $11 hat from Walmart. And so as I sit in my seat tomorrow, I will be wearing this hat home.
Okay, excellent.
I think not only that hat, but also the way you have your hair underneath it is very fetching. So I'm just excited I get to use the word fetching. So
hang on here. I got to pull up my call log now because Reed is terrible at calling me back. So there you go.
So we have a number of topics to cover today that will be a little bit more serious than Kim's hat. And although I have to say, I don't know, maybe the FCC is taking the definition of broadband about as seriously as Kim is taking her hat. So let's transition into that. And we got news. I mean, I think it was in Ars Technica. I assumed it was John Brodkin, but I actually didn't pay attention. I think had the story that kind of broke the news that Chair Jessica Rosenworcel of the FCC is talking about how they might consider someday raising the definition of broadband to 120, which I think a lot of informed people thought would happen before March of this year.
Well, let me put some context on that. She proposed the same thing when she was a commissioner in the 2020 broadband plan, of which immediately got nixed by then Chairman Ajit Pai. But they did have, because she had suggested that they had to have a discussion on it, and they quickly came to the conclusion that 25.3 was still adequate in 2020. So, you know, that was probably the most embarrassing thing the FCC's ever agreed on. So.
I think so. There's a number of things that come up with this, and one of them, Doug, I don't know if you saw. I had a short Twitter thread responding to your blog post about this. I was deeply disappointed you didn't write back and tell me that I'm brilliant. You know, that's what Twitter is for, telling me either that I'm an asshat or that I'm brilliant. So,
well, you know what, Chris? Let's fix that now. You're a brilliant asshat.
So. I think there's interesting discussions, which is you made the point that you know, if you look at speed tests, most people will not show that they have 120. So do you want to make that point?
Yeah, you know, the vast majority of cable customers don't get 20 megabits upload. So most of the United States doesn't have broadband if they pass that. So the trouble is, if that's really the speed test, if that's really the rule, they're declaring that half the people in cities don't have broadband.
But Doug, is it at what time of day? At 2 a.m. No.
I do a lot of speed tests in cities where everybody gets 11. I mean, it's not a time of day thing. They're just not getting 20 ever. So.
But what are they signed up for?
Well, you don't really sign up for upload. The cable companies don't really hardly ever advertise their upload. You know, so. Well,
I think they are required to disclose it, and they do disclose it if you dig deep enough in many cases.
Yeah, no, they don't. They're not really.
No, they don't.
And so what I see is you get above 20 if you subscribe to their gigabit product, or sometimes a 600 megabit product. But if you subscribe to something slower, you typically don't. Except in some cities, everybody gets more than 20. It's a very much of a local network issue. So
usually, the same national companies will have, some cities will get it. Some.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There'll be Charter and Comcast cities that have it and don't have it. Absolutely.
And this is what we would expect, because all of these networks were built by small different companies back in the day that got acquired.
50 different companies, right? Exactly. So some of them are a real mess. So.
But is it what they get, or is it what they are advertising? And I think that's the difference of what.
That's what I said in my Twitter stream. But then I went on to anticipate what Doug would say back to me, which was that the cable companies may not be capable of delivering 20 megabits to every home at the same time.
They're not. If everybody got on and used it, it would crash. So. We don't have time for the 10-minute lecture of why cable upload sucks, but it's bad. It's a technical issue. So,
but it's getting resolved, isn't it? In with the next version of DOCSIS, and I think
that's 4 years away. So,
it could be shorter though, right? It's 4 years away because they don't have an incentive to really deploy it. I mean, the FCC.
No, it's 4 years away. It's 4 years away from being available for manufacturers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it takes a while to get a new technology to market. So. I mean, it's all worked out. They're still working on the lab specs on it. I mean, they've done 3 field tests, but that's not right now they have a breadboard chip that's that big. That's not a chip. Right.
So the other piece of this, which I feel like I'm curious if Travis subscribes to, is it too little too late?
What is 20? It's the.
I don't know. I mean, it's, yeah.
The 100 is ridiculous. 65% of the people, meaning everyone from cable companies, all those big cable companies have set their minimum at 200. So why would 100 be the definition? It means everyone else is going to be behind the cities on the day they approve it.
I'm not sure why we have to set the bar so low. I mean, we're debating to get rid of 500 meg and just go gig only.
Right.
Yeah, we've outlawed 120 on our network like back in '86. So, you know. But I feel a bet, as a wise man emailed us today.
We're in a bet. We're in the double or nothing section of the bet.
Okay, I'm thinking we got to go lobster tails, huh? Let's put some real money into this, Mitchell.
Do lobster tails come with buffalo sauce?
I don't know. Isn't this just one of the commissioners in passing said, should we look at it? Or is
No,
this like
because no, what she has put it into the docket once a year. They have to write a report to Congress. So now that she put it in there, they have to discuss it and vote on it. So
okay.
But if it's a 2-2 commission, then I don't think we know. I think we do know. Then it's probably not going to go anywhere, right?
Chances are high that it won't go anywhere. But she may already have greased one of them to vote for it. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oops. That's cool, but that wasn't the one I meant to click on.
Yeah, we're already having somebody to supply the lobster for you. That's really kind of cheating, so, unless he charges you.
Look at Reed. He's just talking away today in chat. He's our fan. Yeah,
I feel like he's making a case to get joined in. Unfortunately, there's no way to do that with me running the show. Bad timing, Reed. But I think there's a question then, which is my answer. I would suspect yes. Like I would think that the cable cos have fiber all around where they need it.
They have way more than enough backbone to support it. It's an issue of the way the networks are configured. They have a tiny little piece assigned to upload, and it's the old analog channels 1 to 5. And if you're old as me, you remember they were nothing but static. Remember those days? Any of you that are older? Those channels are where car engines, microwave ovens, weed whackers, everything makes them jump around, and that's what happens to the cable network. Everything in the whole city interferes with broadband. Yeah,
Doug, I'm only 20, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I know you don't. Well, you these have TVs where you actually had to change the knob. I know this is beyond your belief.
Pre-clicker.
Pre-clicker.
This is where I feel like my frustration with the FCC is really boiling in that, I was even on Twitter, I was having a conversation and there was a discussion about, jitter and latency and these other factors. And, I feel like once we're out of the sort of like 25 to 50 megabit world, at that point, issues of reliability and other technical measures are more important. And somebody on Twitter agreed with me that it would be better to measure those at this point because they're harder to game. And we'd be much better off if we focused on that.
Jitter is way more important than speed. Yeah. So
you want to see what jitter is for a second for our 20-year-old audience?
Jitter is just when the signal goes up and down very quickly. On a cable network, the speed changes every millisecond. And so if any time it dips too low, if you're on a Zoom call like this one or something, you just drop. It only takes one little tiny hit and boom, you're gone. So.
Yeah, we see that with whenever I'm talking to folks in Los Angeles who are on Charter Spectrum. That network in particular seems that in Maine, frankly, most of the Charter Spectrum in Maine is so awful.
Right.
But this is where I feel like shouldn't the expert agent the whole point of having the Federal Communications Commission, which is there's lawsuits right now whether or not the FCC has too much authority and whether Congress can grant that much authority to it. We talked about this last time, maybe, and then there's the issue of what the FCC can grant that authority out. But the whole point of having an expert agency is that it's supposed to be good at making these decisions, not just being what would be easy? Speed. Let's talk about speed. A test which is easily gamed, doesn't tell us a whole lot. Shouldn't we have the higher standards?
This is a political decision. I can promise you they did not ask their engineers. The FCC has awesome engineers. So, yeah.
But it's so political. But they're trying to appease so many people, and speed is the easiest thing to appease everybody, right? Because if you go to jitter or you go to latency, you're getting into a whole other beast, which you are disqualifying most of the incumbents, which a lot of lobbying money is coming.
And so, no, remember the cable companies fought very hard to get the grants at 120 because originally the federal grants were written at 100. So they're all going to raise their right hand and claim they can do 120. That's what that's their defense.
Although
they don't do it, but they're going to swear they can do it. So.
I'll note that in California, EFF went back and forth constantly with cable lobbyists in Sacramento who would say, oh yeah, we do 35 megabits up, no problem. And then California said, all right, we're going to set the standard at 20 megabits up. And the cable companies fought hard to try to water that down and said, oh no, we can't do that. So they say whatever they want, which is whatever's convenient at the time. And if there's one thing that we found, it's that people can say whatever they want as long as they have enough power and nobody will hold them to account. Anyone know anything about Altice?
Yeah.
Do you know enough to pronounce it Altis or Altis?
I've always said Altis, but I don't know because they don't use that as their brand name. They go by Optimum or whatever. So yeah, they supposedly are upgrading all their networks to fiber, but they announced that 4 years ago, and they're only about 15% done. So we'll see it when it happens. But that's supposedly their plan. So
it's another fiber to the press release that we see so often here in this industry.
Yeah. Now, they're doing some fiber, but they're way behind their schedule.
They're upgrading at the pace of DSL.
Yeah, the company that's actually doing this in Chris's neck of the woods, Midco, says they're going to do their entire network. They're in North Dakota and Minnesota.
Yeah, we were just looking at their area. They're particularly strong up near Grand Forks and Fargo, and we were looking at Northwest Minnesota, and there's a real odd patchwork when you look at the map. And I assume that's fixed wireless from Midco.
That's their fixed wireless, but they also bought like 30 teeny tiny little cable companies in Minnesota. So I mean, they're in some tiny towns you wouldn't believe. So
okay, probably got some work to do there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, some of those were like 12 channel cable systems.
So I would presume they're probably upgrading those with fiber anyway.
Yeah. I think
so I wanna talk about what we're expecting from AT&T in particular. I think they just locked down some more counties in Indiana. Is it? They're moving ahead. They got Oldham County in Kentucky, and as I understand it, these local governments expect that they're giving some chunk of change to AT&T, and they're expecting that AT&T will bring fiber to every one of the premises.
That's what they're expecting.
In the history of AT&T, have they ever done that?
No. They're a very selective overbuilder. They build only to people who can pay them. Yeah.
Do we expect that they'll build fiber to some and then claim some hardship or act of God and then say, well, we got fixed wireless for the rest?
Yeah. That's what I fully expect that. Not, they will probably build to 80 or 90%. They just won't go after the hard ones. Yeah. Or they'll come up and go, oh, and if your driveway is more than 400 feet, it's $20,000 to get on.
Okay, I can't wait for Travis's response. How do you feel about this, Travis?
You know what I'm still stuck on, to be honest with you, is how surprised Chris gets every time. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. I really want to piece together a montage of the last 10 years of Chris surprised at all these policy decisions. So I'm still stuck in that chapter. Sorry, Kim. What are we talking about? AT&T laying some fiber? I don't know.
It's been more than 10 minutes since Travis asked me to quit my job and start a fiber company with him. And so, Travis, the day I can't believe it anymore is the day that I'm going to be going to business with you.
I just can't believe what the FCC did. Hey, we should have a drinking game for this.
No, I don't think we can survive it.
But I think
honestly,
Kim was looking for the question of whether you're jealous of the companies that are going after the subsidies.
No, you guys enjoy it. Yeah, you enjoy it. I just found out last night at dinner that if you're a new fiber entrant, fiber now is 104 months out. So AT&T, you know what? Quite frankly, they can get it tomorrow. Anybody else, 2 years. So I'm rooting for you.
You said 104 months.
Yeah.
I mean weeks.
Sorry.
Because at 104 months, I feel like that's just sort of like
104 weeks.
Maybe
I don't know, weeks, months.
Is it definitely maybe?
Look how surprised you are. Yeah, no, 104 weeks to get it.
Well, actually, if it's 104 weeks, 3 times during the 104 weeks, they're going to tell you it's going to be longer. So it could be 104 months.
So you know what? AT&T has the ability to actually get this done. I guess so. If you're it done.
Yeah, I have yet to find a project where people are like, you know what, we're screwed. We're not installing right now because we ran out of product. I feel like this is one of those things that everyone's just like, oh man, like this is so hard. But it's also the job. It's like they figure out a way to make things work.
No, I know folks that are on hold waiting. I mean, So
I hate you, Doug.
But are you talking to people that are talking about doing it, or people that are
no? I'm talking to as I talk with you, Travis. There's a few other people
ground, like boring conduit. Yeah,
there's a few people that return my phone calls, and
only a few.
Yeah.
It's
one of them watches the show.
It's only going to get worse because of the amount of fiber that's going to be built in the next 2 years. It's going to get a lot harder.
You have to develop relationships with people who already have relationships with these. to get anywhere beyond what Travis is saying, because you can't without that.
We've stumbled into supply chain, and so I feel like this is a chance for Travis to be surprised that his prices have gone up again.
Okay, let's do it.
You know what? We've gone a week now without a significant price increase on anything. You know.
Can I ask you my favorite question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
So who's applying for the BEAD money?
Well, the big companies are. AT&T will go after a ton of it.
No, we just want to have Travis's answer.
I'm waiting to hear. Yeah, no, I'm curious. Doug would probably know. I have no idea.
I just don't know. I just don't know who's going to go after this money.
And I'm going to be surprised.
I know a lot of people who are not going to go after it. They've looked at the rules and said no way. So
do you really? I mean, like,
yeah.
Because I'm still hearing people being like, yeah, we think we're going to try and make a run at it. Like,
well, they might want to now with interest rates going through the roof. I don't know.
This is my question. We're started talking about supply chain. I feel like when you look at BA 4, 5, 10, 20, whatever the thing is, like, it looks to me like China's going to get shut down again at some point here in the near future. And at that point, I don't know what's happening anywhere. Like, I can't imagine, just as we have some hope of some supply chains being restored, another massive shutdown in China, to me looks like a real nightmare.
You know, in the electronics world, it's a really spotty shortage. Nokia, I just had a chat with Nokia. They will ship ONTs in 4 weeks. There's other guys who are saying 6 to 8 months. It just depends on who you talk to when. So, yep.
Travis, are you freaking out? No, 100 basis points coming up though. That's going to hurt. So that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt big time. And if they
does that hurt you today, or does that hurt you next year when you're getting your financing for next year?
Again, it depends on how your debt structure is, but the way ours is structured, it's a rake off LIBOR or whatever there's a new name for LIBOR now. So every time that goes up, that hits us directly.
He got an adjustable rate mortgage. He's dead.
Yeah. It's kind of like a HELOC, right? So every time I pay back, it gives me more to borrow instead of like a lot of guys that are on fixed term loans. I mean, I don't know. Kim, are you guys on fixed or are you on variable?
Fixed.
You do fixed project loans, right?
Yeah, project.
I think Kim just said yes.
Yeah.
She's looking around like, where's my guy? Where's my financing guy?
And
Kim, you just got cut off by Travis. Sorry, can you start over?
Sorry. I was like, this hat is amazing, and my internet is sucky up here. So yes, we have fixed rate loans for the entire project of them.
Okay.
Our cities have fixed rate. Yeah.
Is that how you're seeing most people have their structure, Doug?
Yeah, most people that I work with are either doing municipal bonds or they're getting bank loans at fixed rates.
Okay.
But they're financing $20-50 million projects all once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys of your size do not get fixed rates. So
yeah. Kim, you'll be in a hotel that you're serving next time you're up there, I hope.
Hopefully.
I think she's gonna be in that shack that was right behind the podium there. Probably.
I mean, we're dealing not just with jitter but lag now too.
Yeah.
So
I think her signal's going to the moon and back. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
Bozeman, beautiful city, but I know it looked like LaGuardia in the summertime when you got off the airport. So I didn't book my hotel in time to get to a hotel that was on work at this point. So that is my fault. So, but next time I will be on a hotel that is on the Yellowstone Fire, this current one.
Excellent. And hopefully whoever else is in that hotel will chill out. Because I think you were doing fine originally, but someone's downloading some torrents or something like that. I don't know if that's something the kids still do. Doug, we're on this stuff. Buy America, what's going on there? You just wrote about it.
Well, the USDA asked for a temporary repeal of a break from it, and that's for the reconnect loans. But remember, they also have like 29 different grant loan projects worth $100 billion or something, because they also do farm loans and all sorts of other stuff. And so they said they needed a timeout because their borrowers didn't understand how to buy American. They actually said, can we have a little break so we can go teach them how to do that? But they're expecting to go back to it. The White House made it clear about 2.5, 3 months ago that they did not expect to give people any waivers. Meanwhile, I have all sorts of, I'm on these podcasts watching talking heads going, yeah, they're probably going to give us a waiver. I don't believe anyone's going to get a waiver. I really don't think it's coming. I mean, the White House is real serious about sticking to Buy America. So
now you say that. If we take that, I think this is the immovable force or the immovable object and the unstoppable force. You said that there's pieces that we cannot buy in the United States.
Yeah, and for electronics and stuff, there is a percentage of American, so that you have to fit them under the piece that's not American. So there, I mean, it's for fiber and conduit, it's 100% American, period, no waiver. So it just depends on the item you're buying. Things made out of steel, 100% American. But the electronics, it's 55% American for most of them. A few of them are 45%. So yeah, so there's room to wiggle that stuff. So,
any other thoughts on Buy American from anyone?
It's a good idea. Yeah, we need to support the country.
Yeah. I mean, conduit, handholds, fiber, locate wire, all that's reasonably easy to get by. It's the electronics that's really the hard part.
Yeah.
Kim?
I said, do we think it's going to change? Do we think that we're going to see a change in the regulations of what it's electronics or conduit or fiber? Do we think that as more people apply and more people get into this, are we going to see that change? Or do you think it's going to stay the same?
I mean, Congress can always change it if the White House won't. If these projects truly just come to a screeching halt, enough of them, they might have to change it. Yeah. So.
Do we think it's going to change? Because, I mean, at least from what I'm seeing, you're seeing cities, at least on the municipal side, slow down because of interest rates, right? You're seeing like people be a little more hesitant with the economic conditions and the supply chain issues. Do you think that we're going to see more of those slow down, or do you think it's just like or am I seeing an anomaly in the system?
The United States is slated to build more fiber in 2023 than all the fiber that's ever been built. So a slowdown won't even hardly make a dent in it.
And that's before like a lot of the BEAD and stuff like that. So that's where I'm thinking, like, with all of this talk, I mean, I got to think that like the cost of spinning up a factory to build some of this stuff in the US, you have the time. I mean, like this demand is just going to keep growing for several years and then it'll peak at some point.
Yeah, I'm aware of several people starting like conduit factories that they're going to fill that need. So yeah. So.
And you have to look at the complexity too, because like to do a conduit, you know, if you can get the extruders, you know, it's the barrier's less on conduit than it is like, you know, actually doing fiber cables and drawing and all that. So, you know, it also what piece of the puzzle are you worried about? I've been talking to a lot of people about just at least trying to get the conduit in the ground and then like a year later populating the fiber behind it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which works for your model better than others, perhaps.
Yeah.
So we saw awards in the great state of North Carolina, Doug, and boy, I'm super shocked. But the company that has done,
I need a drink.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I could not have anticipated that the company that controls the North Carolina legislature got most of the awards after having rigged the process to make sure a lot of the competitors weren't able to bid. Shocking. Charter Spectrum, way to go.
I don't know what to say, Chris, because I couldn't believe it myself.
So I just want to, Travis, for your education.
Was Chris surprised? I just want to make sure I drink. So
he was surprised, yeah. Okay. And shocked as 2 drinks.
I wrote about this on LinkedIn and Twitter. So for those folks who haven't had the pleasure yet, the process for building your monopoly entirely with taxpayer dollars is you go and you win the auction in RDOF by totally underbidding, and then you rig the rules in North Carolina so that basically companies like Alan Fitzgerald, who's been on the show before, can't bid. And then you win the awards in North Carolina to pay for how you underbid in RDOF. And voila, you get to expand your network at very little cost to yourself.
And they're getting state grants in the same areas that have RDOF. Yep. So they're double dipping. they're even getting grants in places that are served by electric co-ops, which and those and telephone co-ops, and those companies are going after the money, and Charter's beating them in the grants. Yeah, fun, right?
And now Charter will be trying to rewrite. Sorry, Kim, I'll get back to you in a second. But Charter will be trying to change the pole attachment rules for sure in North Carolina, I'm guessing, to further force those electric companies that it unfairly basically screwed out of the process to get money, to force them to their electric ratepayers to pay the costs for Charter to get their fiber up on those poles, I'm guessing.
Well, it's a vicious cycle. It's called buy the legislature, get what you want. So.
I just didn't know if like we're seeing a public uprising of people being angry about this, or do they not even understand what's happening in North Carolina?
People in North Carolina have been angry about this for 20 years, and that's just they own the legislature here.
The Republican Party, like a majority of their members of the legislature would like to change the rules in North Carolina to make it easier for others to invest aside from AT&T and Charter Spectrum. It is the leadership of like a few Republicans in the legislature that's
like a couple committee heads.
Right, exactly. And because like there's a whole bunch of people, many of them are younger, they've been elected in the past few years, who are like, they're from areas that have really poor broadband, and they're like, they ran on a platform of like, let's try to like change things and make sure we can get it. And then Charter comes in, and the party leadership tells those young, elected folks, sorry, you're not allowed to do anything on this because we got it covered. It's incredibly frustrating. And I'll just say that like, this kind of corruption is not specific to Charter Spectrum, right? If you look at what the private electric utilities are doing in Ohio, it's crazy.
It's not unique to Republican states. California is owned by AT&T. It has been forever. So,
although AT&T's grip has weakened quite a bit recently.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you. And another example is South Carolina, where like the state is overcharging electric customers like billions of dollars for just atrociously managed plants. The Post Courier has covered this. Nobody cares. Like the electric rates are higher than they should be, so that we can pad the profits of like Warren Buffett and whatnot, who own these monopoly companies who just game the system. And like it's complicated and no one cares. And so like it's just remarkably frustrating, and I'm surprised every time. So I don't know what to tell you.
Drink.
But that's what it comes down to. And like I feel like the natural reaction from people is to say, well, it's all just politics and we're all screwed, so I'm not gonna pay attention, I'm not even gonna vote, or I'm just gonna like vote party line based on how I feel about the president or something like that. And that's how we get stuck in this situation.
But that's the complexity of our political system, Chris, right? Is because before I got into like broadband, I had no idea how like complex this stuff was and how important this stuff was for individual residents. But how do you get that across to individual residents that they should care about this stuff when they're caring about their gas bill or they're caring about their electric bill? Who gives a shit about their broadband bill?
Kim, before you were born 20 years ago, there were these people called reporters. Some of them had talent, and they were allowed to go and write stories and to develop video stories, even to explain to people complex situations so that they could then take action on it.
But then the rich people bought all the newspapers.
I'm so glad you said that too, because like people always blame Facebook, right? But it was like those rich people that bought the news, all the private equity that bought the newspapers, that killed the newspapers, and then Facebook came along and knifed them, like as they were lying in the gutter bleeding out anyway. So this is a really brutal show. I don't know who's running this.
Well, actually, it's only you, I believe.
I know that no one can censor me.
20 years ago. I mean, that's all.
If Ryan was here, he would have already muted you, just so we all know this.
Yeah, Kim, you're very lucky to have missed all of this. I wanted to circle back to some of the interesting.
We used to have can openers that weren't electric. We're going to talk about a lot of old stuff.
I still don't have an electric.
Cans. We had cans.
I was just going to say, I don't have an electric can opener. I have a regular can opener. I use it like 3 times a year.
Right.
There's a farmer's market, Doug. I'll bet Asheville has an amazing one.
We have like 8 amazing ones, yes, and a lot of CSAs because all the veggies grow here great. So
the one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the situation in Lakeland. This is where the city of Lakeland has a municipal electric utility. They have a bunch of fiber. They were considering building their own network. And then they said, you know what, that would be really hard. You know what would be awesome and really easy is if we just contracted with a big old company that is not headquartered anywhere around us and doesn't really care about us, and have them build it out. And they have a contract, and the leadership was expecting that company would be investing in the single family homes and bringing competition. And the company basically said 1 year after the contract began, we're going to focus on the apartment buildings. To which Doug says, Chris, get off your high horse. This is nothing. This isn't even really a story.
Well, I don't know the details locally, but it's a 5-year contract to build out the city. It's only 1 year into it. The ISP has decided to go after the profitable places first. It sounds like if the contract didn't tell them that they had to go to the single family homes first, then the company's doing the right economic thing. Now, if they don't build everything, then it's a scandal. If they don't get to the single family homes, then we have a major scandal. But 1 year into a 5-year contract and they haven't gotten to neighborhoods yet, that sounds kind of normal. So they shouldn't have given a 5-year contract. Should have been a 2 or 3 year contract, right?
What do you think, Travis? Would you take a 2 or a 3 contract? Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I was like, do you think it's political pressure? I mean, because that makes sense of what they're doing, going into the highest value areas first, which would be apartment homes, right? I think it's political that they're just hearing like pushback, and then they're going back to the company being like, oh, we didn't mean that.
Oh, I think it's the politicians pretending to be surprised because all the people are bitching to them. That's my guess, but who knows? I mean, again, I don't know the local situation, but yeah. But all the residents probably thought they were going to get it this year. Well, not in a 5-year contract. They weren't anyhow. So
5 years is still a pretty fast time to build Lakeland. We're talking about, I think,
it is pretty spread out. Yeah,
I mean, it's approaching 100,000 or more than 100,000 residents, I would think. I mean, not residents, prem.
Yeah,
I think, it's like, because I think it's well over. I think it's approaching 200,000 residents, and I think it has like approaching 100,000 premises.
Well, if they're not building residential homes next year, then they got a scandal on their hands because they won't get it done, right? So.
Travis, what are you looking at? Comics?
No, I'm trying to figure. Okay, where is Lakeland?
Lakeland is in.
Okay, so they have a 12-month build season. I got to come clean because I was confused with Kim's model for so long, where she wasn't doing MDUs, and now I'm kind of confused with Lakeland's approach because we're actually finding it interesting how MDU uptake is actually starting to taper down than it has been historically. So if I was Lakeland, I would do a blend. I would try to do half and half because find the SFU uptake is far more consistent and easier to get to deal with than the MDUs. But five years to do it in a 12-month, if you've got all the parts and pieces, I don't know. Probably could
and
get
substantial fiber in the arterials. That's the other. That's what. So the city of Lakeland leased arterial fiber that it had significant routes into a large cable company.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can we dig into your MDU thing? Do you feel like this is like? Is this like people that are going? They're doing hotspots off of their phone now. I mean, we got better tethering and limited plans.
Put our finger on it. Honestly, can't because. Is it a rental issue? I don't know. I've had my home forever, but my understanding is rental rates are going through the roof.
Rents have gone up to like 15% in the last 6 months.
So are people starting to cut back on some of the services that they're having? Are they just using their phone? Are they sharing? A bunch of people sharing a hotspot in MDUs. So I'm not sure at least my experience lately, a pure open access MDU model is not bringing the percentages it was bringing a couple of years ago.
Well, an apartment building, 3 or 4 apartments can share one Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
You're seeing more bulk connections on those.
Yeah.
So
honestly, our bulk MDU uptake is bigger. It's just the open access model has been more challenging, and just this year.
Yeah, no, I think it is because in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I live, you're seeing a 1-bedroom apartment go for $200.
How much?
$2,200. Yeah.
American dollars?
Yeah.
Biden,
one bedroom.
Well, they're Utah dollars, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Travis, I'm going to give this one to you. They're Biden dollars because of the inflation.
Oh, yeah. Those are worth half what they used to be. Okay, I got it. No, I honestly, I mean, uptakes. Don't get me wrong. Uptake is still okay. It's just not as good as it was, and we're trying to figure out why. Now the bulk building up is we're having good uptake there. It's the open access where we're having some uptake challenges.
Well, because I think you have to think if a normal so somebody's making $60,000 a year and is a 1-bedroom apartment at 2,200, how much money do they have left for like a broadband connection? They're willing to share and like cheapen out on that than they are anything else, right? So we still say it's a necessity, but it's not necessarily as a necessity as hot water and electricity when you're talking those kind of prices for
2,200 plus your utilities, plus your phone, plus a car. I mean, I don't know how these kids do it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. The expectation is that for many of them, they will not have cars. I think that's part of that lifestyle living in Minneapolis and MDU, where you can get most of your stuff without needing a car.
Yeah, except Uber rates have doubled in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
what do I do? Walk? How do I live? I don't know.
Well, Travis, they don't live where you live on a lake. They're like, they've got lots of takeout options right around them and things like that.
Even though he lives on a lake, but I guess everyone in Minnesota lives on a lake. Right?
Yeah, it's hard not to, really.
Yeah, no, so Lakeland.
So you have to understand, Travis, they go out their door and they could walk any direction without getting wet.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, I wouldn't put all of my chips into open access MDU. But here's the other thing that I've learned, and I learned this long ago building this network. You're always going to have people complain that you're not there. And it's, they'll complain. You're not in this certain neighborhood. They'll call you every name in the book. And as soon as you get there, you won't hear from them again. And now the next neighborhood will run the same playbook. So it just is what it is.
Right.
Well, I can't really blame them. I mean, they want service. I certainly don't think calling names helps. I think there's a real government failure in many of these areas to actually have good policy that will make it easier for people to build. Next week I'm just gonna forecast that we're gonna be talking more about Maine and this campaign that we've seen from folks pushing back against municipal networks. This idea that the best way to solve the problem is with the existing providers. It'd be really, really handy for them. But I'm curious if in the past, 4 weeks, Doug and Kim, if you've seen anything that you're interested in. I think we got Holland coming up to vote soon. There was 3 votes that were lost in Maine by this big pressure campaign from these companies.
The big companies are really slick at getting to the older people and talking them out of it. They scare them with all sorts of lies. They tell them the taxes are going to go up and it's never going to get built and it's a waste of money and they scare them and they don't, and not that many people show up for these votes. These are often these referendums are held in a different time than presidential election. So, 10% of the people in town show up. Doesn't take many no's to lose the darn thing.
And not to be mean to the older demographic, which is not me, as we all know, is that those are the ones who usually show up for those votes, right? And they get scared. But what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this across the country, if you have successful muni networks in those areas, people will come out in droves. But if they don't know that they can be successful in their region, they don't necessarily show up. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, you have to have one as an example, and I think you'll see the waterfall effect happen.
Yeah, so Maine does not have a lot of examples along the coast. And if they had a few, it probably would spread. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting battle because I think these big incumbents who are challenging this are really good at this, and the cities are not anticipating what they are going to see from the challengers. I hear that every day, and I'm sure Doug does as well, is that they think they can get these votes through with no pressure. Everything's going to be fine. But there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes for these votes to happen. And people just underestimate what the big telcos are going to do.
Well, don't forget that once the election season has started, the cities can do no lobbying at all. They're not allowed to lobby. So.
In one of the things we'll talk about next week, I think, is that actually a number of the chambers of commerce that were part of the group that was lobbying so hard against these have pulled out, and maybe accurately or maybe not profess that they had no idea that they were part of a campaign that was opposed to these votes. And so I do feel like some of these lobbyists are kind of engaging in scorched earth, where they may be upsetting folks that they're convincing to go along in doing a more controversial effort than was anticipated.
Wait, but are you surprised?
I'm worried about Travis. I don't want him to get hypoxia. What is it? Hypoxia? What's that? That's too much water. I forget.
Yeah, where you drink too much. Hey, Doug or Kim, have you guys heard of any major metropolitan areas rolling out any fiber networks lately?
The biggest one is Mesa, Arizona, that just announced last week.
Okay, let's talk about that. This is bizarre. This is bizarre. So Mesa does an RFP, right? And says, like, we want someone to build an open access network. And they get a bunch of responses. And they're like, cool, y'all should do it. Like we're gonna have like in theory 4 different open access platforms built. Like, not obviously it's not gonna happen, but like I was like totally like, what the hell is going on here?
That's what they said happened. That's who they said won. 4 different people who said, well, one of them is Google, and Google doesn't actually do open access. They just say,
what do you mean? Google may very well want to do it.
No, but they don't really push the open access aspect.
No, but I'm hearing it's a battle between Sci-Fi and Google.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen with that, and who's going to back down from those? That battle, right?
What do you mean back down? I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean,
are they both going to build the entire city and see how it goes?
Well, then there's 2 others too, right? You think the other 2 are just going to move on to the next community? I mean, first of all, it's a large community, and second of all, Doug, I would dispute that. I mean, my sense is that Google's model, in West Des Moines, for instance, does have 3 competitors on it now, from what I can tell.
Right.
So
we'll see. But no, I'm not hearing too many other big cities doing it yet. So yeah, that's the biggest one.
I think this is going to be an example city. I think this is going to be an example city of how many competitors can come into a city. New competitors can come into a city.
That's Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah.
Mesa, Arizona.
You have to wonder how with 4 of them, how any of them can make money.
Well, Mesa has significant conduit already, I believe, as part of a good planning effort over the years. But yeah, I don't get it.
Because I mean, the example I always used was the Research Triangle here in North Carolina, where when Google built fiber, so did AT&T and so did Charter. So my brother-in-law lives down there, and he has 3 fiber providers at his house. I think they're all 3 losing money. I don't know how they can possibly be succeeding.
That's what Reed just said. He said he's got 2 fiber networks at his door.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more of that, frankly. I mean, I made this argument several years ago that as we dwindle down, the number of people in cities that have no fiber options will increase slowly, while the number of people that have multiple fiber options will increase more rapidly.
Because they will still build to what they perceive to be the best network, neighborhoods. You're right.
Right.
So, yeah.
But what do they care about the take rates and the return on investment? Because if you're having 4 fiber providers in the same neighborhood, what is your potential take rate? Unless you have
20%.
But I think it's a long-term play. I mean, I think there's this issue that like they're not interested in like the first 5 years financials. They're interested in like after the reckoning comes, right? The reckoning is coming where a bunch of providers are going to sell out to private equity, and then they're going to divide up the country, and we're going to see a bunch of that fiber is just going to sit there and be unused as they narrow down the number of networks, I would guess. Am I crazy?
Well, one of the options would say like Mesa, after 10 years, Google Fiber buys 2 of them out or something. I mean, that's the kind of that's the only real sensible long-term play there. So yeah,
that's what I would expect would happen.
Right.
I don't know if it'll be Google, but I think
somebody, right? So yeah, I don't know if it'd be Google either, but yeah.
Because I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that like a lot of this, I suspect, is backed by people that are looking for the long-term benefit when there is limited competition and they are the sole provider.
Gee, people want monopolies.
Yeah, so
or just out service here.
Yeah, we're going back like in time, and we're just putting more monopolies in place. So you have higher prices in one provider, area after
Well,
putting
you
all
say
this influx of money.
you say we're putting monopolies in place, and I feel like the UR might be doing a lot of work there. Like, I take a lot of this from just like reading of the history of electricity, and like there's smart people who will figure out really intelligent ways to corner broadband market because it is an essential utility that people will pay a lot for. People will be paying $100 a month soon per Doug Dawson. Some of us already are. And so the idea of being able to corner that is really attractive, and they'll take risks to be able to do that. Now, I think, federal policy is nominally trying to oppose that, although not very intelligently. I think local policy is totally ignorant of it because like they just care about getting something in the ground before the next election, right? Or like doing whatever. So they're not. Whenever I talk to people about this, and I'm like, you have to focus on like not just the next 3 years, but like what happens in 5 years and 10 years as like there's decisions about cost. If you've just given a monopoly to a large company that doesn't care about you, you have to understand that you're screwing future generations most likely, unless Tirana comes along and like really does result in like that's our competitive threat. But no one's thinking about that. They're all just thinking about how to solve their immediate problem and not what structures will last and preserve their freedom in the future.
So I have a question for you. So when we see electric monopolies, they usually have lower prices than when we see in the other markets, right? Why do we see that? Why don't we? See
all
that in the
electric
market?
Nearly all
regulated.
U.S. areas are regulated monopolies. There's very few where there's not.
Right.
And one of the things we see is that those companies control the PUCs, and that's what I was getting at earlier. Like they put tons of money into politics, and then they game everything. So we pay higher electricity rates than we should because we're paying for inefficient generation. We're paying for a whole bunch of things that we shouldn't. And so that's the problem with that fundamentally. And that's where
you go to those states and the co-ops rates are 20% lower because that's
and the muni is the same. Yeah.
Right.
Because they're not playing those games, and somehow they provide better service at lower prices. But that's what I view. I mean, I have a very long-term pessimistic view of this. Like, yeah, everyone's getting fiber. I think a lot of people are getting monopolies over the next 10 years. Like,
yeah, but I'm just waiting for Teddy Roosevelt to come back and bust it all up.
But that's the thing, right? I mean, like this is the question of like, do we go with Teddy Roosevelt or do we go with what I think was Wilson's options?
I like
because Teddy wasn't really into breaking stuff up. Teddy was
really
about
wasn't.
He was about regulating.
He was actually, he was not the real right example.
But this is where like
talked it up loudly. Yes.
This is where UTOPIA and the others are so important because they will be insulated from all this as long as you don't sell it. Like if your mayors decide to get rid of UTOPIA, or in a different case, if a mayor had that option in a different municipal network to get rid of it, that's where the danger will lie. Because they're going to get tons of money for it. Like Travis, I don't know, you were trying to throwing out like 24 times EBITDA, right? Like local governments are like, oh, wow, especially, we see interest rates rising. You see potentially economic slowdown. It's going to be really attractive to privatize a municipal network or fiber. And then
there's already been a dozen city networks that sold fiber networks. Yeah, the offers are too good. Yeah.
But I think with UTOPIA,
they're offering almost every one of them money. So
yeah, UTOPIA is a very different situation because they're all interconnected, right? To separate each of our cities into their own network. So in a benefit, it's that it's not easy to sell. For the residents, it's not easy to these benefits. But
I hate to tell you, that would not stop a vulture capitalist from buying the bigger towns. Believe me, they could fix that.
They could. I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't, but I mean, it takes a little bit of somebody with a little bit of creativity to get to that. And a lot of these people want simple deals and just like get rid of it, right? And there is a lot of complexity with UTOPIA and our sister agency, so it's very complex. But like, are these when we're seeing these cities sell for these like huge dollars? What are they looking at? Just the huge dollars today, not what's in the future from 20 years from now?
They don't care about 20 years from now. They're selling for the dollars today. Yeah.
But also, I mean, one of the things I saw recently, and this was not like fiber to the home market, I don't think, but like a community that has fiber assets, they're looking to find a purchaser because they can't find someone to run it. They just can't find the human being with the talent. They'd love to hire a manager that could handle it, but they haven't been able to find that person that will be able to live in that area and likely work for the salary they're offering. I mean, this is the thing, right, Travis? I mean, like, are you losing people, Travis? Like, I mean, are you? I think talent is like, it's a huge thing. It's the biggest value right now. Is like, if you know how to run a fiber network, like your talent, you can write your ticket.
You know, you pay people well, you treat them well, you give them an environment where they can prosper and feel like they're adding value, and people prosper. You know, are they willing to go work for some giant corporation? I'm not terribly worried about that. You know, the question I was thinking about is, Kim, are you ever worried about someone coming and overbuilding you? You know, as you guys were talking about, like the fiber networks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always out there that somebody can come in and overbuild us. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Well, you are, right? T-Mobile and Verizon are right now, effectively.
Yeah, not necessarily like fiber to the home. I mean, the only person that we're seeing that's out there is Google Fiber, but they're not the same cities we are. So it's like,
well, your long-term rest is places like Bozeman, where the cable company might do it. So
yeah, you're.
But see, the thing we never, or maybe we talk about it occasionally. You know, we always talk about fiber, but you know, the reality is, this is a customer service exercise. You know, that's why I don't ever worry about someone overbuilding us, because I don't think that they could do the job that we do with the customer service, and that's where you win this exercise. And so, you know, technology, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think fiber is the best. It gives the most consistent and reliable experience and has the most legs to it. But I don't care. I mean, if someone wants to come and compete with us, you can lose all the money you want. I mean, I'll overserve you, which I think is what resonates with our customers.
Plus, Travis never has to work because his entire workforce is dressed in black, and it's really
you
cool.
Got it. Yeah, all the free T-shirts you can afford, right? Or you
I never got my hoodie. I just want to put that out there. Go ahead, Kim.
Me neither, but thanks. I need a hoodie, Travis. Thank you.
I like how I said I never got my hoodie. Like I deserve it or something.
Yeah.
And then I will just piled onto that. Thanks, Chris, because I always need another hoodie. But I think that's where you're seeing. Like, and I was looking up here, right? Because Spectrum is one of the big incumbents up here in Bozeman, and their net promoter score is a negative 79. For UTOPIA down in Utah, we're at plus 64. So you're
Can you explain that store? Can you explain that store for folks?
What is a net promoter?
What a net promoter score is?
Yeah.
So if you ask, how likely are you to recommend this service to your friends or neighbors, right? A 9 or 10 is a promoter. A 7 or 8 is a passive, so they don't count. And anything 6 or below is a detractor. So you take the 9s and 10s, and then you take all of the detractors from like 6 and 0. And you make that happen. So when you're saying a net promoter of 79, most people are detractors in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And for UTOPIA, we're seeing most people are saying that they would promote it or go recommend it to a friend. It's just a different beast. So when you're seeing those kind of numbers, it goes into Travis's point, is that most people are not necessarily concerned about technology. They're not necessarily concerned about price. They are concerned about the customer experience and what they are getting.
Well, let me paint a scenario for you, Travis. We continue to deal with supply chain inflation and other challenges. You want to keep building out, so you have to raise your prices. Someone comes in and starts building that network, and they're like, you know what, we're going to offer great customer service. You know, for the first 3 years, we're gonna undercut you by $20 a month, and we're gonna take enough that we're gonna basically deal you a mortal blow. And then, you know, and in 7-10 years, we'll be the only one in the market, and we're gonna raise our prices then and get our return then.
Yeah. Well, so we have a little bit of advantage, and probably Kim too, because the thing people don't understand is if we actually wanted to make us a lot of money, we would just stop building. Mm-hmm. By the time that they got through even putting in, I don't know, even getting past 20,000 homes, just the labor of doing it, I could have all my debt paid off.
So you're saying that you would just be like, all right, next year's a holiday.
Yeah.
We're gonna lower our rates for everyone. We're not gonna build anymore, and we're gonna make sure that we don't bleed any customers to these people that are coming in.
We're the only business model that, in our financial perspective, we have the downside scenario for the financials looks better than the upside scenario. and all fiber networks are like this.
They are.
Yeah. And Doug probably knows better than anyone. If everyone's always like, oh, you make a fortune. I'm like, if I want to make a fortune, stop investing.
You get past your debt and then you make a real fortune.
Yeah. 37 months later, all the debt's paid for, and then you're swimming in cash. Yep. But that's, that's not so there really isn't like, if I wanted to come in and overbuild Kim, she could crush me just by stop expanding because she's got such a big head start. Mm-hmm. And that's really the reality of these networks. But when you asked about potential buyers, private equity, they're all about the future. Mm-hmm. And if you continue to execute like if we were private equity and we bought UTOPIA, the number one question we would ask is, how many more homes can we get in front of? How much deeper into the network can we get in the homes you are in front of? And that's the win, because private equity isn't going to hold. Private equity is going to hold on to it for 5 years, grow it, and then dump it off to the next private equity person.
Right.
Yeah. So this is kind of the reality out there. But, that's why I've never been terribly concerned about overbuilding. Where you're most vulnerable is in that first 2 to 3 years. Maybe even the first 5 years.
Well, that's why you don't see two people who are competing when they're building at the same time for that reason as well. Because you are very vulnerable at that state because you need those take rates very fast in those overbuilding situations.
I always figured we needed to get 5,000 subscribers, and then we were like, we were through, but those first 5,000 are hard to get because, like Kim alluded to, we care about fiber, but most people, when you walk up and down the street selling it to them, they want to know price, reliability, customer service, and not necessarily in that order.
I've assumed that from what I've looked at the history, that you build the network and the first 10 or 15% are kind of free, right? You could literally be like the Satan 666 network, and enough people hate Comcast enough that they're going to come over to you to give you 10 or 15%, and then you got to start working.
But
I would challenge it. I would say you get 30% without even trying.
Yeah, I do love that Comcast is the most hated company in America, so that doesn't harm.
Undeserved. I'll just say again, Charter, Spectrum, AT&T, much worse companies. And Charter.
But you gotta ask yourself, Comcast network isn't bad up here in Minnesota. It's actually pretty decent. It's customer service that's terrible.
Yeah. And it can never get good, I don't think. I mean, I don't think Comcast is capable, in part because of this thing we talked about earlier. Comcast is not one network. It's like, what, 50, 100 networks, Doug? What would you estimate? Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 400 or 500 networks they bought over the years.
And so, and I think Comcast has been more aggressive about replacing that. So eventually it will be one network, but they have all these systems, and you call into that one person, they're trying to figure out, all right, where are you? What's the technology that was there? What's the history?
But at their size, their real problem was getting customer service reps who give a damn.
Yeah.
It's just a job. Yeah.
Chris, I've sent you those Reddit threads periodically. There's a good one going on right now. And if you read through it, you don't see the word fiber very often. You see customer service, people are respectful, they answer the phone. That's what you hear, because that's what really resonates. And you know what, you have one or two people that whine about price. Price isn't even on the radar for most people. They would rather have it be reliable and consistent.
Well, it's on the radar if it gets high enough, but if it's a decent price, then it's not.
Yeah. If it's a fair price, you're fine.
Go ahead, Kim.
And I'm assuming, Travis, you get this same feedback, but I get this all the time on our Google reviews. Is this person was really nice to me on the phone, and the installer is really respectful of me, and it wasn't it's not hard things that you're trying to achieve, but it's these small things that nobody understands, that the big incumbents have never that they treat you like you need their business, vice versa, that they need your business, right? So
which is true.
You call Comcast and they try to upsell you, no matter what you call about a problem, and they take 5 minutes to try to get you to increase your spending.
The simplest thing we put in. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say, and Doug, do you upsell them? Do you buy another product for them?
Oh yeah, every time, you bet. I don't ever call them. That's what I do.
Yeah. We put in a thing like, I can't stand those phone trees. I'm 52 years old. I hate that. Press 1 for sales, press 2. So you know what we do? Somebody answers the phone, like old school. And you know how many positive reviews we get off that? Just that simple little thing. And you know what's funny about those phone trees? It's one person at the desk, and you weed through 27 options to get to that person.
And they don't know what's going on.
Why can't that person just pick up the phone?
Yeah, no. So this is what I always get at, because I'm like trying to figure out how to put my 12 or 16 digit account number into the thing, and I get to the person and they're like, "All right, what's your account number?" And I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Why?
I lost that the day after you hooked me up. How the hell do I know?
Yeah. So this is why I love when the big companies are like, they can't compete at the level that people want to be treated like, and then that's my biggest fear, is turning into a company like that.
We should had a very interesting blog just a couple days ago. And this was for cellular customers. But what they said was 50% of the people who contact customer service decide afterwards they don't want to keep that provider anymore.
Really?
Now in cellular, that's a very easy to change market, and it's very different than broadband, but because everyone's roughly equivalent. But that tells you how important customer service is. That was a dramatic example. So
it's a huge example, Doug. But I mean, I've seen some of my customer service reps, because I'm over the customer service department in my company. I've seen them get brownies from people who have brought them in stuff and said, "We appreciate you listening to us." I mean, that's how some of these small things can make a huge difference in your take rates and your customer acquisition. They will tell friends this. But these big companies are like, "Well, no, that doesn't matter." And I'm like, it's incredibly important to people out there right now. I think it started with the Amazon effect years ago, when Amazon actually cared about you as a customer, not necessarily what they care about you today.
So do you end up with half of your CSRs stoned ever?
Yeah.
Well, we don't like to talk about that, Chris, but we'll talk about that in another.
Company customer service actually care about how quickly their reps get off the phone, not if they help people.
Yeah,
you should be promoting them to talk longer, not shorter. Right?
Yeah, my average customer service rep is on the phone for 6 minutes. And
and there was several of the community networks I've talked to will talk about how, and I think Travis, you might have said this too, you trust your customer service folks that if they need to dispatch a person to go, if they're like, "Look, we can't resolve this over the phone, we're just going to send someone," or in smaller towns, it's just "Hey, I'm going to drive over to your house right now and help you resolve this issue," and get her done.
Oh no, that drives me nuts. That's where we started out. We'd sit on the phone for an hour trying to troubleshoot. I'm like, that person lives right there. Go over there and help them plug the cord in. I mean, that's all you have to do. Because the problem with technology people is they assume everybody knows. Right. And a lot of these people don't know how it works. They don't care how it works. They just want to watch TV. Or they just want to be on the internet. They have no idea how it works. They don't know the difference between Wi-Fi in the house and the fiber connection coming in.
Right.
And our mission is to make sure that they don't need to know the difference.
That point is they don't need to know the difference.
Yeah.
But I think that is a huge point. I tell my customer service reps all the time, just because you took that call 5 hours ago, the person who's calling in today or right now doesn't know that you took that call 5 hours ago. They're a new customer. They don't understand what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I love is that I've seen some of my customer service reps for especially elderly people, not like myself, as we've discussed today. They'll be like, that we've heard that the relative of that elderly person will call in and say, my parents' phone is down. I can't get a hold of them unless that phone is up. And they'll write our technicians on our Slack channels, and they say, "Well, we'll get out there tonight to make that happen."
Yeah.
Those kind of small moments make a huge difference in the perception of your company and how many people will subscribe and how many people they will tell to subscribe to it because of those small things that you go the extra mile for. And I think that is the thing that the telcos don't see anymore.
Well, do you know when AT&T was a monopoly before 1984, they did that stuff? They were great at it. They just forgot after after they became profit oriented.
Well, the incentives changed.
When they became profit oriented, and they stopped caring.
I don't know if you know this, Doug, but I wasn't born by 1980.
I have no idea who I'm even talking about.
Yeah, final thought on that. What we rolled out a number of years ago, we call them our emergency response team. They're on 24/7. It's usually 3 trucks, and their job is to be at somebody's house in less than an hour to fix their problem. Mm-hmm. That's it. So if a call comes into the call center, they can't resolve it. They dispatch ERT. ERT fixes it, and off we go. And that's it. And that is the type of response that resonates through social media. And that's how you live and die and how you compete against the competition. And
that's why scale matters, because it's a hell of a lot easier to do that on a base of tens of thousands of customers than 1,000.
Yes.
Oh, exactly it is. But it's trying to continually improve the customer experience, and don't get drunk on your own product just because you have fiber. A lot of our customers have a choice between another fiber provider, but we don't let that other fiber provider have any customers. So, and it's not price, I'll tell you that.
So your other competitor has 0% take rate?
Well, I drive up and down the alleys and find out who their customers are. So you know what? It's the one thing about an aerial network, you can tell who it is.
He snips the drops,
We have to wrap this up soon. Travis is getting distracted, and I know Doug just recently got upsold on the Peruvian Soccer 2 League from Charter Spectrum when he called in about the problem he had. So he wants to check out some of those games.
It was only $9 extra a month.
Look, that Rye gave us some really good.
Look at Rye, yeah.
I know. Look at us.
Oh, I was getting ready to do the outro, so.
Fire the old guy. No, Rye. Come on.
We need you, Rye.
Please come back.
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about the old guy. I was like, which one of us is the old guy?
Yeah.
Not
Kim. She made that clear.
Definitely not
Kim.
Double not Kim.
Yeah. She was crystal clear in today's episode.
Not 42 in 2 weeks. This would be 20.
So as just one last thing, I'm just curious. We covered a bunch of different stuff. Kim and Doug in particular. Is there anything else that you want to make sure we talk about as we roll out?
I'm very disappointed that you and Travis didn't make a bet on whether the FCC would pass 120 this year.
Well, we do. I mean, we have the double or nothing bet that okay. Yeah, which is rolling on. So by March, I don't know. I don't know that it matters. Like the honest question.
That's a better answer. Yeah.
Let's be honest. Like the FCC has lost the trust of everyone. Of its other agencies, not on everything, right? Like, I mean, I think if you look at Harold Feld talking about this 12 gigahertz stuff and the FCC's engineers, you said it earlier, Doug, like their engineers, I think are terrific. They do a really good job. But on this matters of broadband, the FCC has lost the trust of everyone. And I don't see that there's any kind of a plan to get it back, frankly. Like if I was at the FCC and if I was a chairperson after the federal government had decided to sideline me in the distribution of the largest investment of a wired, telecommunication services, I would think I would have a plan to be like, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to regain the trust of everyone? And I feel like if anything, they're just proving their irrelevance in this matter.
So do we think that Gigi's going to get through in any time soon?
Like, I don't know. So I'm so frustrated. Like Chuck Schumer, is he gonna like? Why don't they just take September off too? I don't know. Like,
I don't understand.
Gone all of August.
I don't understand how they can't get her through. I'm mystified.
Yeah. One of the issues has been health issues. Go ahead, Travis.
So Kim, as a fellow operator, outside of this show, do you ever think of the FCC?
Not at all.
Not ever. Yeah. So.
Chris and I are doing a good job.
The
FCC, we've done a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not think about it, but like a lot of the rules that you follow and your staff have to follow and the reporting and everything else all come down from the FCC. It's like that thing where like you may not think about the FCC.
Yeah,
the FCC thinks about you.
Yeah. I can't keep track of everything. Isn't there something new now? We have to tell everyone where our customers are. So
yeah.
Fabulous idea.
No. It doesn't. I don't think if tell where customers are, that actually would be considered a trade secret. Still, it's where you can offer service.
No, he has to also tell them where his customers are. He has to.
Okay, I do love the last comment that we just received. And more important, do your friends or family ever think of any government agency other than the IRS and maybe NASA?
The police when they're following me. Other than that, I'm good. Yeah.
I'm not 20, and so now I think about the Social Security. I got my first check. We're good.
Yeah. I just come on here to hear what the FCC's up to. I don't even pay attention. So thank you guys for keeping me educated. We're rapidly looking for 1,000 by 1,000. That's my goal.
You do understand, Travis, that everything we say about the FCC is imaginary. This is all just to spoof you. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Although, I mean, I think, I haven't tracked it, but on Twitter, like Harold Feld and others were kind of looking at this. I don't know if it's a bill that's moving rapidly through that would gut its authority over the telephone networks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I feel like, you have a few thousand people that aren't able to call 911. People are going to take notice, Travis. Like there are things. I mean, the FCC did unveil, was it 811, the mental health hotline? That's or 899.
Something like that, some number.
There's a number that if you're having mental health issues.
The FCC has done some good things. They did a good job with forcing everybody to do 911 right. They do some good stuff.
Well, that's, you know what? I commend them.
Yeah.
The 6 gigahertz spectrum, fabulous decision.
Yeah.
Chris, you didn't mention the one thing I was thinking you were going to mention and put up the picture of what arrived.
Oh, yes. Travis has Tirana to play with now.
Yes,
so.
We have the Carvana network gear has arrived.
I thought you need to take a Sharpie. Send me a picture of you. Put a V in it.
I'm very curious to see how this magic stuff works. So we're going to hopefully mount it here in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be able to report back if it's the greatest thing since peanut butter and jelly.
I'm hoping that Kim and Doug will be able to join us in August. I hope you're not taking the whole month of August off because you are not U.S. senators, not doing anything important apparently. But hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks. That might be too soon for the Tirana, but later on in August, we'd love to spend some time on that, Travis.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see. Everyone raves highly of it. Let's put it through its test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I might have another hat by then.
Excellent.
I do got to commend you on the hat. I'm going 2 thumbs up on the hat today. It's a good look on you.
$11.
Well, next week we're looking at 4 Eastern time, 3 Central for call with Peggy Schaefer. Peggy Schaefer, who is retiring the day after our show.
She's not allowed to do that, by the way.
I know, but on the other hand, that means that we're going to have a great show with Peggy.
Her last activity in the broadband industry is you.
Yeah, but then hopefully we'll have her on again, unleashed.
Yeah, we've never seen that.
Kim, we couldn't catch you. Sorry.
Can we have her come back and just get back in the broadband industry? She's a
Oh yeah, I don't think she's disappearing from the broadband industry. I think she's just gonna be let's just say entertaining.
Free agent.
Yeah. So wonderful. Thank you all, and hope everyone has a great long weekend. I'm gonna click the outro button, and who knows what'll happen next. So
is this a long weekend?
Well done, Mr. Mitchell. Well done.
Long weekend for me.
It's a long weekend for me. Holiday on Monday in Utah.
What holidays on Monday?
Pioneer Day, Utah.
Oh, cool. I'm just trying to. I have too much vacation time, and I work all the time, so I'm trying to work fewer Fridays over the summer, which just means I end up writing and doing other things I didn't get done earlier in the week.
We'll explore that next time. What does work mean, Mr. Mitchell?
Sounds good. You can tell that it doesn't drag me down too much.
Have
a great one, everyone, and thank you for being on the show.
Good.